All right, so we're recording now. So this will be recorded and posted to the IEA YouTube channel by the end of the week. So if you loved what you heard and want to share it with a friend, coworker, spouse, anyone of that nature, then check it out on the IEA YouTube page later this week. And I'll put a link in the chat for that as well. Anyway, as I said, my name is Lisa Jordan. I'm the Managing Director of the IEA, and I'm also the Executive Director of the Executives Association of Charlotte in beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina. Happy to be joining you today. Before I introduce George, I just want to put in a quick plug for the IEA conference. It's coming up in less than a month. We're going to be heading to Detroit this year, September 17th through 19th. We still have a few tickets available, also some opportunities for house and social tickets. Looking forward to having a great time and enjoying wonderful keynote speakers and panelists. And there's a lot of fun social activities, even a golf outing, lots and lots to do. I'll throw a link in the chat about the IEA conference as well. And I even have a code that'll still get you a $75 discount. So if you haven't signed up yet, it's not too late, and we would love to see you in Detroit. So now, the reason you're all here to hear from George. I just had the pleasure of meeting George recently, and already I can tell this is going to be a great webinar. George is the president of Effectiveness Institute and a pretty recent member of the Seattle Executives Association. George is a seasoned speaker and facilitator and an author with over 25 years of experience. He asked me not to read the whole bio, so I won't, but I will tell you that he has worked at Amazon and Microsoft and makes friends wherever he goes because he helps us make difficult conversations easier. Take it away, George.
Nice segue, Lisa. That was wonderful. Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're zooming in from. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I see some of my fellow Seattle execs here. Thank you for showing up and supporting the home guy here, especially the rookie. And but the rest of you that are here, I'm so glad you're here. I'm here to talk about your favorite subject, conflict, right? Who doesn't love that, right? Let's spend a day in conflict. Love that. I wanted to make this applicable for you. So do me a favor if you would. I want you to think of a specific difficult conversation you've had, right? Think of a specific conversation you had with somebody that was challenging to do, all right? Because as I go along today, if what I say cannot be related to that, will not be helpful for that, then I missed the boat. So I want to make sure this is applicable for you, useful for you, all right? So keep that in mind. I'm going to ask you to think about that from time to time here. When I say the words difficult conversation, would you chat, please, just in chat, what comes to mind? When you hear the phrase difficult conversation, what do you think of? Would you please chat an answer there for me? I'd love to know. Argument. Thank you, Lisa. Bad news. Thanks, Ann. Conflict, Ryan. Yep, conflict. John, thank you. Stress, Sultan. Yes, yep. Stress. Negative outcome. Very common. Employee issues. Yeah. In-laws. Well, prickly feelings, uncomfortable, awkward. I appreciate all the chat comments here. Thank you. Worried about hurting someone. Yeah, yep. Legitimate. Normally, most of the words that people think of when you think of difficult conversations, they're not real positive words. We're going to talk about that. That's understandable. We've all had probably very less than ideal outcomes in conflict conversations, right? So there's a good reason for that. They're not real comfortable. I want to talk to you about why I want to present this topic today to you from a statistical perspective, all right? Roughly 85% of employees experience workplace conflict. Now, I don't know about the 15% that don't experience it. Maybe they're the ones causing it. I don't know, maybe. A large portion of employees, 76%, are conflict avoidant. Not good statistics there. 49% of workplace conflicts stem from personality clashes and egos. Is that a big surprise to anybody here? Probably not. 57% are caused by different perspectives. That's the statistics I want to come back to, right? I'm going to come back to that one later on because that's a big thing in conflict right there. Training is the biggest driver of high quality outcomes. Isn't that interesting? This is not me trying to tell you you should do training on conflict. It's just the fact. It is. And 57% of employees have not received conflict training. You are no longer in that category. After today, you'll have received conflict training. So you're part of that 43%. They're doing great. Okay. When we say conflict, I ask you to tell you what you thought of. This is a definition of conflict we found out there in the American Heritage Dictionary. A state of disagreement, a disharmony, a clash. Now, some people would identify with that. They say, yeah, that's pretty accurate. I would say, yeah, I can see that, but I think there's more to it than that. And we're going to talk about that. What's the more to it than simply disagreement, disharmony, and clash. A lot more to it. There's a lot of positive potential in conflict. I want to get to that today. Here's our objectives. First one, we're going to talk about the triggers of conflict, what starts it up. We're going to talk about the importance of what we believe about conflict, which I alluded to already. Considering the value of proactive responses to conflict, which, by the way, is not easy to do, just in case you didn't know that. And also understanding how to use a four-step accountability model. My guess is we all have conversations with people sometimes where there's accountability, right? Probably pretty common for us. Those conversations can be so hard to go into, can't they? Right? How do you do those really well? I want to talk about those because sometimes conflict goes wrong when we're doing something really necessary and really good. Now, first thing is this. This goes back to the statistic I talked about, differing perspectives. The first thing in conflict, the most important thing I can tell you today is this. This is a piece of art that hangs in a world-class museum by a very famous artist. Some of you may know this artist, some of you may not. His work is in global museums around the world. There's some at the Seattle Art Museum here, Northwest. There we go, Donna, you got it, Rothko, exactly. So Mark Rothko. Some people look at Rothko's work and they say, interesting or fascinating or cool. And some people will do what I do, like, seriously, this is in a world-class museum? Are you kidding me? I could do that, right? Now, I'm not anti-Rothko, but I'm just simply saying, different perspectives. Why is that so important? In conflict, there's always a belief that someone has a different frame of reference. They're seeing something differently than you are. Always, every time when there's conflict. Now, it's a belief. It may not be true. You may see things exactly the same way, but for some reason you don't know you see it the same way. So I want to say the first thing is this. If I'm going to do conflict well, I've got to know your frame of reference. If I don't, I'm not going to do it well. That's the first thing. Now, that sounds really easy to say, but it's really hard to do. We're going to explore that today, all day today. By the way, if you have any comments or questions as we go along, feel free to chat those in there. Stop me. That's totally fine. All right. What starts conflict up? One of two things starts most conflict up. The first thing is when somebody does something you didn't expect, they say something you didn't expect, or they do something that you thought they didn't do what you thought they would do, or they didn't say you thought they were going to say something. Like, you're not doing what I thought you were going to do. You just said something I didn't expect. Usually these are not big conflict triggers. They don't usually escalate conflict dramatically when somebody doesn't meet our expectations. But sometimes these happen with this one, a values violation. Oh, you just called me out in front of other people. You just basically say I don't have integrity. You just accuse me of not caring about the team. You just, whatever it is. Then that happens, boy, that's when the conflict really gets going, right? We know that feeling, don't we? We've all had that. Like, ooh, wow, you are trying to imply something about me that's not positive and not correct, right? So when you put one and two together, you really get pretty steep stuff usually. But even two could be pretty challenging. Now, what happens when conflict starts up? Well, let me back up before I get to that and say this. The trigger of conflict is this, and then we do something. We say something, we do something in response to that. And usually when we respond to that, we're usually not trying to say, I'm going to make this conflict worse. We're usually trying to do something we think will be helpful. And some of us probably are, but sometimes we're not. And here's what's so fascinating. Two big words, intent and impact. When I say and do something, my intent is usually positive. And I'm going to say yours probably is too. You have positive intent when you say and do things. Like if there's an expectation, I don't try to blast somebody. I try to say something to clarify something or be positive, right? But sometimes, even though that's my intent, my impact is still negative. Our intent can be positive, our impact can be negative. In conflict, this is really dicey because you think about that. I'm trying to do something positive in this conflict and you're not helping. Why? Well, usually because when we get into conflict, what happens? One of three things. We either ignore, avoid, placate, pacify, we attack, we blame, we criticize, we accuse, or we go blank, we go stuck, we get immobilized, we just numb out. These are three classic responses of flight, fight, and freeze. And they're very common neurological responses to things like of an expectation, values violations. Very common responses. Nothing wrong with this. It's very typical. However, there is something wrong with it because these things, even though they can be helpful in many things in life, oh, by the way, sometimes we do flight, right? And then we do fight later on. You know about that, the whole wait. And then that, now here I come. We've all been there before. Well, we're going to avoid that syndrome altogether here. These three responses, these three reactions to conflict are all about this. They're reactive, short-term focus. I'm not thinking big picture here, only the information on hand. Think of what happens when there's a loud noise right next to you. What does your body do? Boom, it immediately reacts. You didn't control it. You blink, you breathe differently, your physiology changes, your blood flow changes, everything changes. In conflict, when there's an expectation or a values violation and we get triggered a little bit, we get a reaction to it, our body starts changing, our physiology starts changing. So that means if I'm going to do conflict well, I've got to push against a very natural physiological phenomenon most of the time. Now, sometimes I don't, because sometimes I actually would say that sometimes fight and flight might be appropriate. For example, one time I came home after an evening out with someone and there was a person with a gun behind the door, the glass door of the place I lived. I did not know the person. I decided to fight, and I think that was a good choice. So sometimes fight and flight's okay, but in the workplace, most all the time, these reactions are not helpful. Short-term focus, only information on hand. You know, it's fascinating. When we get in conflict situations, oftentimes we lose our peripheral vision. The blood flow to our vital organs changes. It's fascinating what happens. So that means we got to push against all this, because you know what this leads to, don't you? You probably recognize these things. What happens when someone gets into fight, flight, or freeze? You get Band-Aid solutions. You lose trust and respect. You spend time fixing the problem from the conflict, less willingness to work together, less collaboration, decrease in efficiency. Anybody seen these before? Yes. Does that look familiar? All right. Okay. So that's what we're dealing with here. If you get in this place where someone's reacting to conflict, or you are, I'm going to give you a few quick tips. Do not say these things if you want to make conflict easier. Don't say you misunderstood. Don't say, I don't understand why you're upset. Don't say that. Don't say, let me explain what I meant. Don't say that. Don't say you're overreacting. Whatever you do, don't say that. Don't say, I knew you'd say that. No, never going to make it easier. Don't say you're being so sensitive. Never going to make it easier. And whatever you do, never say calm down, because no one ever calmed down when they were told to calm down. These are things you don't want to say to make it easier. But when there's a conflict reaction, these things are so easy to say. And sometimes our intent is totally positive. But the impact of these things is hardly ever going to go well. Why? Because these things are about your frame of reference, not theirs. That's why. And in conflict, people don't want to hear your frame of reference. They want to have their frame of reference heard. So I want to ask you a question. What do you think of when you think of conflict? Do you think of this room, this space? Is it like a boxing match? Some people do. But some people actually, when it comes to conflict, they think of this room instead. And I want to encourage you to think of this room instead. Because if you can get into this space in conflict, you're going to handle it so much better. This is really hard to do this. This is the kind of mentality I want to have about conflict. Now, the question behind this, as you probably know, is this. What do you believe about conflict? If I think conflict is bad, if I try to avoid it at all costs, I'm gonna react to it. I'm gonna attack it. I'm gonna get away from it. I'm gonna avoid it, or I'm gonna freeze. That's what I'm gonna do if I think it's bad. And some people do, right? It's understandable. But I'm gonna change your mindset on that. If my mindset is this, conflict is an opportunity, then I'm gonna open the door gently. I'm gonna walk into that room. I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna have a conversation. If I can think it as an opportunity. And here's what I want to tell everybody here. You know this already, probably. Conflict is always an opportunity. Always. It may not be one you want. It may not be one you like. It may not be pleasant. But it's always an opportunity to learn something about someone, about yourself, or about someone else, or about a situation you didn't know as much about before. Every time. I will say you this. One reason why I love this topic is because every time there's conflict, I have a chance to learn something. I told my fellow execs about a week ago, that's why I teach it. Because I'm always learning about it. And I am all the time. That's why I love teaching this. Because I'm always get to learn how to make it an opportunity and less of something bad. Now, how do we do that? Well, the first thing is we've got to recognize the neurological priority of the human brain. Anybody know what it is? You want to chat your answer? What is the first priority of every relatively healthy brain? We'll say every single brain, because maybe some people. Donna has survival up there. Thank you, Donna, for that chat. Safety, says John. And the answer is, he nails it. John, you are right again, Mr. Rondello. Safety, that is the first part of the human brain. That's why when there's a loud noise behind you, your body goes, and you flinch and you jump and you turn and you do all those things. You didn't do that. Your brain did that for you. So in conflict, if you can get to the point where you think of it as an opportunity, you can get away from that reactive pattern. Now, here's part of the challenge with conflict and with safety. Safety is relative. Have any of you jumped out of a perfectly good airplane before? Would you please chat? I know, John, you have. We talked about that. Anybody else here has jumped out of a plane? Would you please chat? Yes. Peter has. Oh, John has. I know that too as well. So, Peter, would you unmute and tell me, did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Was it cool or was it terrifying? Or was it both?
It was everything.
Everything.
Yeah, and I had my mind had to do this gymnastics where saying, look, on the one hand, it'll be a lot of fun. On the other hand, what are you doing? Are you insane? You know?
Did you do it a second time, Peter? Because
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because the first time I
did.
didn't die. So I thought, okay, so that's positive, you know.
See, that's good because
That's a
actually, if
bonus.
you've got a plane, you actually know how to overcome the fear, the safety. Like this is not safe to jump out of a plane, but you convince yourself it was safe enough to do it. So that
Yeah.
actually goes a long way towards this, right? That helps. Now, some people see something like this picture here, and they would say, "Oh my gosh, I'm cold sweats. Just seeing a microphone in front of a crowd makes me feel like terrified." Anybody feel like that here? Would anybody actually rather be dead than talk in front of a crowd? Some people actually would do that. I've heard that statistic. So, which kind of means you'd rather jump out of a plane without a parachute than talk in front of a microphone. That's kind of what I'm thinking, which is kind of weird to me. But so safety is definitely very relative. That's the point of this. What feels safe to one person might not feel safe to another person. So here's a question I want to ask you that's really the key to all this whole thing. Here's the question. What's the best way to make it safe for someone when you're having a difficult conversation with them? What's the best thing you can do? Hint, it's what most people want, but they don't know how to get it. Anybody have an answer to that? You can unmute and share. What do you think people want more than anything else? Civil conversation. So Zoltan says there's a solution. That can be helpful too. Ryan said to be heard. That's a great answer. Yeah. To be listened to. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. I appreciate these answers. Thank you. Thanks for jumping in here. I like to be interactive. Anybody else? What do you think's the best way to make it safe for someone? To be heard, Susan. Thank you. Yeah. So you're on the right track here. I'm going to add one more word to this, one more thought to this, because you got the right idea here. They want to know they were heard. They want to know that you understood. Okay, you ever heard this before? I understand. You know what your answer is to that usually? Oh, really? Do you really understand? Now, if you've told me, if you've done things so I know you understand, if I know you heard me, like everything about what I'm talking about, that's definitely going to make this conversation much easier. Because I know you're not talking about something that you haven't heard. You haven't listened to me. You haven't got it. But if I get your frame of reference right, and you know I got it right, the emotion and the facts behind it, that's going to make this conversation much easier. So to be able to know that, that's what we're going to work on. How do we do that? Well, here's one of the key things about conflict that we've learned over all the years of study. This is a fascinating thing about people. Inside of all of us, there's this whole world of stuff going on, right? Your perceptions, your values, your beliefs, your emotions, your thoughts, all this stuff going on, your intentions, all this is going on inside of us. Nobody knows those things. Nobody knows those things about us. But outside of us, there's a whole nother world of stuff going on. Our behavior, our facial expression, our body language, all these things. And we humans have this amazing ability to see and hear this part of somebody and assume things about them. Oftentimes it's actually correct. Not always, but oftentimes it's correct. For example, you're walking on the street, somebody's walking towards you, they're looking at their phone, they're not looking at you, you assume they're going to run into you, you step out of the way. That's an assumption you made. Probably not a bad assumption, because I know I've avoided a few crashes with people because I made that assumption. So assumptions are not always wrong. They're part of how we interact and have conversations. But here's the thing that's fascinating. In conflict, assumptions are never helpful, ever. If I'm going to get your frame of reference, I cannot assume what you believe, value, think. I have to find that out in conflict. What were your perceptions of this? What are your emotions about this? What are your beliefs about this? What are your beliefs about me in this place? If I can do that, I will definitely make conflict and difficult conversations much easier. We're going to work on that skill. What I'd say is this: when there's so much trigger to conflict, you want to stop assumptions. Let me give you some assumptive statements. All right. Here's some assumptive statements. You misunderstood. You know what? I can never prove that you misunderstood me, ever. Not until I know what you understood. Here's another one. Why are you upset? That's always a good one too, right? Why are you so upset? Of course, the answer could be, I'm not upset. Have you heard that before? I'm not upset. Well, you sure seem upset to me. This is never going to be productive. You're going to just rabbit trail that. You're overreacting, like another one. How do you know they're overreacting? Maybe for what they believe, it's totally fine. Can you say that's not what I meant? Great question. You can say that to somebody as long as you clarify that that's exactly what they thought you meant. Yeah. Yeah. Good question, Kim. Thank you. I knew you'd say that. Ooh, that's a gotcha. Because it's like saying, I know you. I know what you're going to say. Now, by the way, for those of us that are married or have partners, we know sometimes this is very easy to do. You're being so sensitive. Ooh, ooh, ooh. That's another one where I'm going into you and I'm telling you about your internals. I'm not stupid. Well, I didn't say you're stupid. Well, you act like I'm stupid. There I am. I'm going back into that internal part of you and I'm defining what you believe about me. What is your problem? Oh, there's a good one too. That's another assumptive one. I'm assuming you have a problem. And what is that problem? Why should this be a problem for you? We make assumptive comments in conflict a lot, and I do it too. So one of the first things I want to ask you is this. If you're in a conversation with someone, what is your statement back to them about? Are you saying something that you know is true? Something you believe is true? Here's a better idea. Let's do something instead. Here's what this kind of model is like. When you make a statement, someone makes a statement to you like, well, you did this and this and this. And you make a statement back to them. Well, no, I didn't. I didn't do that, blah, blah, blah. That kind of a dialogue back and forth is really about power. And here's the thing about power conversations and conflict. They're very common, but they don't support dignity. I've heard people have arguments back and forth with statements for literally 15 minutes. No hearing, no listening really happening. Just simply who's going to have the power when we get done, who's going to win. Now, if you're the supervisor in a workplace, guess what? You get to win every time. But you don't want to do that. Because every time you win at this, you're going to actually lose something. Performance always drops. Because they keep a score of this stuff, right? So we don't want to back somebody out. There's an expression we have at the Institute we use called WOWD, way out with dignity. I always want to make sure there's a way out with dignity. I don't want to take away anybody's dignity in this conversation. Debbie asked, how about let me clarify? You know what? That's okay to say that. Yeah, I think probably it's okay to say that once you know what their frame of reference is. Because maybe it's not clarification that's needed. Maybe it's actually just being heard. That's all they want. So let's do that. How do we do that? Here's the magic skill. It's so easy. It's amazing, but it works really well. When someone makes a statement to me and I feel that reaction of conflict, the number one skill, the most important skill you can have to get their frame of reference is to ask them an open-ended question. That's your secret weapon. And I'll tell you, so many people don't do it. They ask a closed-ended question or they ask a fake open-ended question. Like, why do you think that? Or why'd you believe that? Or what made you think that was true? That's not a real open-ended question. That's more like a statement that kind of behind it, like, you shouldn't have thought that. You shouldn't believe that. You shouldn't be thinking that way. It's a very simple, profound technique when you can genuinely ask an open-ended question. Now, I'm going to say one thing about this too as well. There are people who do this technique who will use it against you. So the technique itself will not get you all the way there. Some people will simply gather data from you so they can do a gotcha later on. So your intent has to be pretty genuine here. But if you really want to know more about what someone's frame of reference is in a conflict conversation, this is your best tool, is a genuine open-ended question. In fact, you might have to ask multiple questions. This is pursuing clarity. This is about supporting the dignity of you and somebody else. I want to learn more about what you're seeing and what's happening here for you in this. Now, this is hard to do in real time, by the way, when conflict's going on and it's aggressive and it's active. It's really hard. And I work in hospitality sometimes. When you're in front of house or back of house, sometimes you can't have time for this. You just got to go. But if you don't come back to it later on and get clear on what happened, that's where you get the win-lose, the lose-win outcomes here. When you pursue clarity in conversations, that's proactive, that's win-win. Trying to get somebody else's frame of reference. they'll be more open to getting yours as well, by the way, when you do that. But when you get reactive and that fight flight, when that takes over, it's going to be win, lose, or lose, win almost every time. And you might get to a win-win eventually, but the time you spent to get there is usually a real waste of time, usually. Reactions, thoughts, what are you thinking about this? Anybody making connections to your difficult conversation? Do you know, let me ask this question. Do you know in that difficult conversation you had that you got clarity about that person's frame of reference before you started talking about what you believed and what you thought? Because if you can do that, it's like magic. Anybody have an example of that? Parroting back, John. Thank you for the question. No, it's not. It's similar, but it's not. Here's why. Because when I parrot back to somebody, if I don't get in their frame of reference, it will sound like I'm defining their internals. But I can do it as long as I say, you're upset because I did this. If it's wrong and I'm grounded, they'll say, no, it's not that, it's this. Okay, I got it. Now I understand. Now I'm hearing you. But some people will parrot back like say, okay, so you're frustrated because I said this thing. No, you don't get it. You don't get it. Actually, what you said there was more than simply frustrating. You actually violated a value for me. Oh, okay. So I got to listen more deeply. So I would say usually one open-ended question starts you all the way there, but it won't get you all the way there usually. So let me go ahead and role play this with somebody here. So sounds like that can be helpful. I would even say this, if you're really clear about their frame of reference, you don't even have to say that. It's profound when someone knows that you have their frame of reference and you can say it back to them from a grounded place. So let me go and role play this. Let me go and say that that Lisa and I, because Lisa's co-hosting here, Lisa and I have had a conversation about something I did at work that was frustrating for her, and she's annoyed by that. And I've asked some questions to learn more about that thing she asked about, learn more about that. So now after I get that frame of reference, I may say something like, oh, so you're frustrated because the way I handled that situation basically took you out of the loop on that. I got into your lane. Now, if that's right, and Lisa knows I heard her, then she'll say, yeah, not only that, she may add something else to it too. Oh, okay, so that too. Now, I may think that Lisa's crazy about this. I may think that she's totally misunderstood me. I'm not going to say that yet. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say anything about that until I know her frame of reference. Because then I can validate, oh, okay, now I know what you're saying. Now, can I tell you, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about what my intention was there, because it clearly wasn't what I wanted it to be. Now, Lisa, I want to ask you, if you know I got your frame of reference, would you be more open to hearing me say that to you then?
Definitely. Yeah, I think getting that frame of reference though is what's really hard. I think sometimes people don't even know their own frame of reference.
They don't. You're absolutely right. I may have said that to you like, oh, so you're upset because I got in your lane and took some things that you were supposed to do. And you might say, no, that's not it. That's part of it. But what it was on is like 2 weeks ago, you did that. Oh, there's history behind this. Okay. So that's why the question may have to be followed up by another question. So I think when you get that, then you got it right. If you get it, the frame of reference wrong, that's a great question, Kim. If you get it wrong, but someone knows you're trying to get it, they'll usually help you. If they think you're trying to define it for them, they won't help you. That's why I say that opportunity for learning more, opening questions, as hard as that is, it's one of the best things you can do. And once you get it right with somebody else, you'll see them de-escalate. You'll feel it in the room. And then it's the opportunity then for you to enter into that conversation and talk about your frame of reference. By the way, that is one of the hardest things for me to do. Because I want to tell you my frame of reference. I want to tell you what's right about that. So yeah, clarifying your perspective. Totally. Yep. Totally helpful. Any question you can ask out there to get them talking about what they believed. Can you ask them what the real challenge is? Yes, I can certainly say, Zoltan, would you help me understand what this challenge is for you? Because I don't know if I get it clearly. As long as they know you're trying to understand them, people are fine with that. Totally fine. You got the idea. And again, I'll say this sounds really easy. I think this is the lifetime goal to do this. It's really challenging in conflict because I don't have a natural response to that. But proactive definitely increases understanding, my understanding of you and what you're upset about. And that's what I want to get to. Because if I can get to that, then I have a better conversation with you, as opposed to protecting and defending, reactive. That could be very subtle, by the way, but there's a difference. We all know that difference too. Proactive, you're focusing on the future. Reactive, you're focusing on the present or the past. So if you find yourself or somebody else circling in the present or the past, it's great to ask a question. So I think that this is what frustrated you or what annoyed you or what upset you about what I did. Is that accurate? If they say yes, to say, well, seems like we're still talking about that. Is there something I'm missing? Great question. No, I just want to vent about this. Okay, then I'll listen. Whenever you're done, let me know. Sure. Yes. Great question, Kim. Yes. Yep. That's great. I love that. Telling them what you did wrong. Exactly. Yeah. Some people are going to want to do that over and over again, aren't they? Telling you what you did wrong. Would you say more about that, Kim? I want to make sure I got it right, because this is a great chat you have here.
Okay, I'll give you an example with my husband. We were I was upset about something, and I was telling him what I was upset about, and instead of him recognizing it or trying to understand it, he said, well, you did this in a completely unrelated, incident. I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's not what I'm talking about. So sometimes I feel when you bring up an uncomfortable conversation, so I'm going to come to you, George, and I'm going to tell you, have this uncomfortable conversation about something that I'm upset about. And you look at it as an invitation for you then to tell me what, something that maybe I would have done, maybe months back that is nothing related. So that's what I call like conversation hijacking.
Yep. Oh yeah. People
So
will
how
do
do you
that.
get people to come back to that to say, okay, wait a minute, let's deal with this first, and then, you bring up your issue at another time, because I have the courage to bring mine up.
Well, I will say that's a great question. And some people, again, will not do this well. So that sometimes doesn't help, because if somebody doesn't do it well, it's going to make it harder for you to work at it. But I will, an example of that, I know that in a conversation like that, if I don't know the person very well, or it's not a great relationship of trust and respect, I would definitely say that's something that I didn't know about. So I would like to talk about that more, but I'd like to come back to that when we finish this first, because I don't feel like I've gotten clear on this. Is that okay with you? And if they say no, it's like, okay, then we'll talk about that instead. But I'm gonna let them know I'd like to talk about that later and finish this conversation up first. Like, I'm not trying to avoid that, but I'd like to talk about that with you later. That gives them the acknowledgement that, okay, I'll listen to what you said about that, but I want to finish this first. Yeah. And I actually try to do that in my relationships with people I work with, and in my marriage with my kids as well. So,
but it drives me crazy.
Oh, absolutely. Some people are masters at sabotaging conversations. And I would say, I don't think they necessarily do it maliciously, but they just have things they do that do not make conversations easier. Definitely.
And maybe that's the avoidance.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Great question. So I do like to, I think it's important to be able to ask people if it's okay to, I really want to stay on this topic here. I don't feel like I really have understood this clearly yet, or really talked this through with you yet. And then we come back to that if you want to. Usually what I find is once you get clarity on the first thing, the second one has a lot less energy to it, usually. So, but they're going to grab something and pull it out there. Let me summarize what I'm trying to say here so far. Conflict comes from expectations and or a values violation. Assumptions are made about internals based on the external, which, by the way, is very easy to do, especially when you're empathic or you're insightful about people, and it still doesn't matter. Even if you're right, someone doesn't want you to tell them that they were overreacting. So, right? Calm down did no one ever when told to calm down, even if they know they should have. We take power positions or we seek clarity. If I'm going to seek clarity, I gently move towards the conflict to make it safe, take advantage of the opportunity it creates for me to learn more about what they see, and for have an opportunity for me to share with them what I see. So indicate their deeper issues. John, great question there. Yeah, if someone brings up something else, it's probably something from their own story, their own history. They haven't learned how to talk about those things before. They're going to bring it out to the garbage out there. Yeah, in conflict, there's no doubt people will sometimes act out in some really horrible ways. And I think when that happens sometimes, or I should say unproductive ways, when that happens, knowing the model and knowing how to follow this can really help to keep the conversation back on track, not let the hijacking take it off track. Some people will be great at wanting to take it off track. And so it's really hard sometimes to keep pulling it back to where it was, but it can be done. So Zoltan asked a question, by the way, in my relationships, when I'm comfortable to do so, would ask calmly, would you like me to listen? To like a solution. It worked out for me. Yeah, for some people, when you get to a certain point, that can be a helpful thing to say. I would say probably, Zoltan, I'd probably say, my guess is you probably don't do that when someone's upset at you about something and they're going off on you. Because if you've said we'd like me to listen or want a solution, I think that might create some challenges. So, but yeah, that can be a good technique too. I know you all have techniques for how you do things here, so hopefully you can see alignment with this. Number two, assumptions about the internals. Kim, you asked more about that. Let me clarify that because that's a big one in conflict. And the workshops we do on conflict, we spend about an hour on this, in fact. But things like if I say something like, oh, well, let me give you an example of that. Well, during the meeting, you rolled your eyes so I could tell you're upset about something. Nope, wrong. Well, your body language told me that you didn't like what I said. Nope, wrong. Well, I just noticed, that you, the way you responded to me, you were pretty irritated. Oh, definitely wrong. No, those are assumptions about what somebody else thinks, believes, or feels or intends. Can't say anything like that at all. If we do that, we're definitely going to escalate the conflict up. A different way of saying that is when someone comes into your house, if they get invited to the kitchen, that's like the inner place where you kind of have that more like, that's more like the intimate conversation space. So I would say that in conflict, if you tell somebody else what's going on in their kitchen, they're going to be like, you don't come in here and tell me what I think, believe, or feel about something. I ain't invited you into that part of my house here. Stay out of my kitchen. In conflict, don't get in the kitchen. Stay away. Let them tell you what they think, what they feel, what they believe. Let them ask them about that. That's going to make it easier. But a lot of people do make assumptions. And by the way, those of you that are really smart will usually be right oftentimes about your assumptions. But even then, it's still not going to go well. I will say this. I make assumptions about things sometimes, and I'm surprised how oftentimes I'm wrong. And I'm actually a pretty good listener, I think. Pretty good observer of people. A proactive response increases understanding, fixes problems, eliminates the reactive syndrome. That's a challenge. I have to stay proactive even when somebody else is reactive. It's very difficult to do that, especially if you're married to that person. Not that I would know firsthand because, my wife is a wonderful listener, but some of you know that she's here. So any comments or questions about this? I want to cover two more things here and wrap it up. Give you time for questions. Any questions or thoughts? Let me go ahead and show you a picture here of something really great to know in conflict. This is a picture of someone giving you fries. Let me go ahead and illustrate what I mean by that. Oftentimes conflict happens because expectations were not clear. Let me say that differently. You didn't ask for fries. You didn't tell me you wanted fries. I didn't know you wanted fries. We should have known I wanted fries with my burger. We don't know that. So often in conflict, somebody's expectations were not aligned. They didn't match up. They thought this would happen and this happened instead. So we have to get really good about getting clear about our expectations. And when people didn't get our expectations, to recognize maybe we didn't tell them. Maybe we thought they should have known. Should have known is deadly in conflict. You're right, Kim. Here's what goes into clear expectations. All of this stuff goes into clear expectations. How often in conflict conversations, I cannot tell you, did I find out there was something I did that wasn't clear to somebody else? You know what? That's on me. I take responsibility for that. I don't like to say to somebody else, you should have known. If I didn't tell you that, if I didn't communicate that too, then it's on me. Now, if I did communicate it to you, I thought I communicated to you, I thought we had a conversation about it, that's a different conversation. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's accountability. That's a different conversation to have. But there's a lot that goes into this. And oftentimes expectations are iterative. It takes time to get there. Hard to get clarity. But in conflict, my goal is to come back to a place where whatever wasn't clear is clear. And oftentimes I have a part in that too. Because oftentimes I was not as clear as something as I wanted to be. And oftentimes it is somebody else too. But I'm going to let them go ahead and figure that out. One more thing, and then we'll wrap it up here. Asking for accountability. If I believe there was clarity about the expectations and the expectation wasn't met, this is in the workplace, what do? The first thing I do is this. I start with I. Never start with you. You is a trigger word in conflict. And then you tell them either confused, frustrated, I think there was a misunderstanding. Just start with that and then stop for a second. Just stop for a moment. This formula right here works like magic. I'm confused about something that happened. I'm frustrated about something that happened. I think there was a misunderstanding, I think. And then pause for a second. Let the room breathe. And then briefly tell them why. Tell them your frame of reference. Here's what I thought. Here's what happened instead. Here's what I think happened instead. And when you do that, this is a big one. You have to avoid the words you. Try this sometime when you're upset. It's almost impossible. When you're upset, it's almost impossible not to say the word you. But listen to this. It's like magic. Watch the difference. Okay, John, you and I have been interacting and chat a little bit here during the session, so I'm going to do this with you. All right, my friend? Okay? All right. Hey, John, when we talked yesterday, you told me that you were going to get back to me with some information. I didn't get that from you. So what happened? Did you hear all the yous?
Yeah. No.
Did you hear all the yous, everybody?
Yep.
3 times I said you. You probably all heard it, didn't you, right? I did not follow the model at all. Let me try it again. You know, you told me yesterday, John, that I'm already on the wrong foot, aren't I? I'm already off on the wrong foot. You feel it already kind of like, whoa, 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 right? Let me try this model right here and do this differently. 1, 2, and 3, and then I'll do 4. I'm a little confused about something that happened, John. When we had the conversation yesterday, I thought that I was going to get report information back, and I didn't get it in the time I thought that we talked about. What happened? That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Did y'all hear the difference? There were no U's. Not one U. And you probably felt it, didn't you, John?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you first started, it was like, okay, wait, defense. How do I dodge and weave this? So,
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and we don't mean that to happen, but we do that. When
Right.
we say, yeah.
Yep.
So this model is a great way to start that. Now, this doesn't solve the accountability question. There may still be consequences here. I'm not saying that this is like they get a way out with dignity. A WOWD does not mean they can do whatever they want. There still could be consequences. But I'm simply saying it lets them explain their perspective without being backed into a corner. Sometimes people will say, you know what? I'm sorry, George, I blew it. That was on me. I did say that and I didn't get it to you. I'm sorry. You know what? Let them explain that. Sometimes they won't take the way out with dignity. That's okay. I'm always going to give them that chance to give out with dignity because I don't want to back people into a corner here. Never going to be helpful for that long-term relationship. So WOWD, thank you. Way out with dignity. Would I speak quickly sometimes? Really? I do. Way out with dignity. That's what that means. So by the second example of the U's doesn't give a way out with dignity because you're backing somebody into a corner. The U's are like you. It's kind of like the finger pointing at somebody. You said, and you told me that you would do, and people hear it. They just get locked into it. So quick story on that. I was having a conversation with a wonderful coworker, great friend of mine. I was very upset about something he did. I came to him to explain it to him. I did not follow the model. He told me after we got done resolving the conversation, he said, I'm going to come back and give you some feedback now. When you came into my office to talk to me, you said you 8 times within 1 minute, George. And I realized, oh my gosh, I did not do this at all. I did not do the model. Now, fortunately, he was mature enough to stay grounded and be proactive with me. He didn't react to my use. But I can understand how easy it is to do that. So it's a great tool to start hard conversations about accountability with. The key thing is stay out of people's internals. Well, let me go and back this up. Summarize what we need to do in conflict. Think opportunity. This is an opportunity for something for me to learn, for someone else to learn about me, for me to learn about what I didn't know about something or how they experienced something or what their sensitive points are or what they didn't get trained in, they felt like they were inadequate for. Whatever it was, have an opportunity to learn something. Maybe something that I didn't even know I did wrong. Second thing, check assumptions. Leave them out the door as much as you can. Find out what somebody else believes, feels, thinks about something without putting yours on them. Third thing, focus on what you want to get to. What's the desired state? I want to get to a win-win outcome where we have clarity. You have clarity and I have clarity. And we have that dignity in place. Clarify your expectations. Were they clear to somebody else? Oftentimes they weren't. Sometimes mine aren't clear. And I've learned a lot about that in life. I'm still learning about it. And when you have accountability conversations, hold them accountable, but hold them accountable by asking for accountability. That way you stay out of power positions. Asking for accountability is a much better way to have accountability conversations. So those are things we do to make difficult conversations easier. So simply go out and do all these things, and I promise you, your difficult conversations will go better. How about that for a promise? Okay, this workshop comes from our Navigating Conflict program we have at the Institute. It's a one-day, half-day, or virtual program we offer. You also offer a lot of other stuff, which I'll just tell you about here. This is the work we do. I had a chance to do it with you today. Thank you for the opportunity. And with that, I'll just simply open it up for questions or comments.
Thank you, George. That was fantastic. Hopefully we all learned how to handle these difficult conversations easier. And please go ahead, chime in, unmute yourself or pop in the chat if you have a question.
Kim, thank you, Kim. Yeah, any questions, any pushback, anything at all, let me know, please. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. Appreciate that. The slide deck, yes, I'll create a PDF of the slide deck. Can I send that to you, Lisa? Would that be helpful?
Sure, yes, I can send it out to everyone who registered for the webinar. If you didn't register and this was forwarded to you, let me throw my email in the chat and you can shoot me a quick email and I will get it to you. Also, remember the recording will be posted on the IEA website and I put that in the chat as well.
Thank you, JR. Appreciate the feedback. Thank you. I hope you all
Hey,
got something that
George.
you can use.
Sorry.
Yes.
Hey, George. It's
Yeah,
Richard
Richard.
Ma from Hawaii.
Yeah.
Have you
Aloha.
your thank you. Aloha to you too. And great information. But
Thank you.
have you ever had situations where you actually cannot get anywhere, even using your technique? I
Yeah.
kind of like flash on to people who I call our shapeshifters, where
Yeah.
you try to approach them logically and without hopefully using you. But
Yeah.
somehow they shift things
Yeah.
in their favor. How would you
Absolutely.
deal with that?
Great question. Like I mentioned a couple of times, I'll say it again. This doesn't guarantee that someone else is going to handle it well. But I would say, Richard, to answer your question, sometimes people will kind of like, if they will, they'll like give up on what's happening because somebody else is being difficult. Let me give an example of that. If Kim would have come back to me and wanted to keep piling on something else and something else, I probably would have said, I get into a place, I've gotten this place sometimes with people. I'll say, it seems as if there's something that you are feeling or something's going on for you that I'm not getting. I feel like I'm not getting something you want me to get, you need me to get. Can you help me understand what is it that I'm not getting that you need me to get here? Because oftentimes when people are shape-shifting, it's like you're asking them to get down to the point by doing that. And you're asking them to tell you what that is. And then if they shape-shift again, you could say, okay, now I'm confused a little bit because it sounded like the point was this, and now it's coming to this. Can you clarify that for me? So with shapeshifter, it's hard. It's a lot of work, but I have done that with people sometimes. And some people will throw up their hands and they go, I don't care anymore. And that's them kind of saying, you're not letting me do my shapeshifting thing here, and I don't like it, so I'm going to bail out. But if they do that, I'll say, okay, well, let me know if you're ready to talk again. So, but it doesn't work like magic. It's still going to be hard. Yeah. Is that helpful at all?
Yes, very good. Thank you. Yeah, it's and a lot of times those types of personalities tries to throw it back at you to say, you weren't paying attention, or you weren't understanding what I was trying to tell you. So yeah, it gets really complicated sometimes. Well, thank you for that suggestion.
You're welcome. Barbara asked, what does shapeshifting mean? So since you use the word shapeshifting, would you mind explaining what that means, Richard, in your terms, shapeshifting? I think I know what you mean.
Actually, it's a phrase out of sci-fi where you have a monster that changes shapes, so or changes their appearance or their abilities. So you can't just deal with them with one approach. And so I just use that as a description, but it's basically a situation that evolves all the time, or that person that you're dealing with try to change the situation to their advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are people like that out there, we know. So a lot of stuff goes on like that out there. I do think that when you are getting some back their frame of reference and you're staying grounded, people that will not like that, don't want that, they will start to kind of act out in ways that make it pretty obvious that, this is like, I can only do what I can do here. I'm going to try. I really want to understand what you're saying, but you have to help me with that because I don't know your frame of reference on this. So I have said that before too. And when you do cross the assumption boundary, because sometimes we'll do that, it's really great if you can say, because I like to do this too sometimes, I will say, you know what, I blew it there. I said that you felt this way, or I was implying that. I don't know that for a fact, so I apologize for that. Would you tell me more about, boy, that's a huge game changer for somebody. If you can own when you start making mistakes with this, just say, you know what, I'm not doing this real well right now. So anyway, real helpful to be able to do
Yeah.
that.
George, kind of linked to that. I didn't want to type this out because it's too long, but one thing that I use, and I'm curious what your impression is of this, if it's effective or not. But someone comes at me, kind of like you said, what you did with a friend, says you.
No, yeah,
I usually try to not always easy,
right.
to say, you know what, you have every right to feel that way. You're absolutely right. And then turn it all into eyes. I
Yeah.
tripped on that. I fell on that. I've got a friend who has gone into meetings before. He said, let's go around the table and each of us act like we're 100% responsible for the situation that's going on here. And we all know we're not, but we'll go first. And then you just say, I did this, and this is what I did to destroy this.
Yeah.
I seem to see that kind of deflects a little bit of it, where people start saying that, well, gosh, he's taking so much on himself. I actually kind of did contribute to this. And all of a sudden they're being more conciliatory and probably take on more responsibility than you even thought that they should.
Yeah.
Just because they're seeing your vulnerability.
Yeah.
And when someone's mad and you agree with them that they have a right to feel mad, it's kind of like they
Yep.
feel heard. I don't know though if I'm not taking it far enough, or if that's if there's something I can do better than that. As I look at that based off of truly understanding them, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, no, you feel like you have every right to feel that way. And is that coming across enough to be able to really understand them?
That's a great question. I definitely would say, don't want to get too formula. I think there are some people that would be enough for. Some people, if the relationship is a certain place, you could say, oh, I get it. I understand. Yeah, that makes sense to me. That'd be okay for them. For some people, that would be like a trigger. So there's an individual element to this of course. I think you're right, though. I think when people can, like mea culpa, I made a mistake there. If that's a genuine statement for you to say that, I think people can pick up that, oh gosh, you're not coming in with your guns blazing and a fire at me. You're coming in with your hands open, willing to say, yeah, if I did some wrong here, I'm sure I did. I've done it before. I probably did things here. You have a reason to be upset. I want to learn more about that. I would say that probably the only thing I want to make sure I don't do is I don't want to, I don't need to take responsibility for, things I did not do. Right. But at the same time, being able to say things I did do that were unhelpful or not constructive or were not clear in my expectations, I definitely want to take responsibility for those things. Yeah. Yeah. Some people, I think that knowing your audience, right? Some people will want to take advantage of someone who does that, and they'll try to. And of course, that wouldn't work with you, John. I know, because I know you want to know you would stop that. But some people, I think, would let them kind of play that game with them, and then kind of look for them to say, I screwed up. I screwed up. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I learned early on my sales career. I had a manager who told me a couple of things, and it's the old adage of every finger that you point, you have three pointing back at you. And
Yeah.
and it's in the human conditions to forgive. So if you apologize, and even like if you are in the wrong or you did make a mistake, it's so much more valuable because it's in our
Yeah.
human is to forgive, right? So, but as long as you don't make the mistake again, the same mistake twice,
Right.
that could be an issue. But just learn that carry that in all my personal relationships and professional relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I try to take that. Yeah, I agree with you, Zoltan. Like a high road on the emails. I'll get people all of a sudden saying, "Hey, you were supposed to send me that email last week," and lots of times I know I sent it. As a matter of fact, it's in my sent items showing that I sent it. And instead of pointing out their mistake, I'll instead say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I sent that last week. I must have forgotten. Here it is again."
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, they'll figure out later that, oh, they actually did send it. There it is in my box. But I've taken the high road, and it just right there.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
like,
Yeah.
are these hills you want to die on, right? These are always the questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Yep. Definitely. Yeah. I can make a mountain out of a molehill pretty easily, Zoltan. So yeah, very helpful. I think, we all know this too. You're talking about this too. The person that says, I'm sorry immediately every time, obviously that could be problematic too, right? You don't want to be that person that always says, oh, I'm sorry. Because that's like, boy, you have to be sorry all the time for everything. But I think you're right. A well-placed, I'm sorry is
What I meant
real.
was, like, if
helpful.
I made a genuine mistake, I'll apologize. I'm not going to just say
Absolutely. Yeah.
something.
I said that for those here that are who to apologize. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Same thing. Yeah. Cindy, in your answer to the question, how long it would take to learn this? to become a habit? Well, so far I'm working on about 25 or 30 years, I think, my Shell execs heard, and I'm still not getting it right. The hard thing about teaching this is that when you're in a conflict conversation with somebody, they expect you to do it well. So now my bar is really high with a bunch of my colleagues here, but I will do my best to do this for you. if ever there's conflict. So thanks, Cindy. Thanks again for coming, everyone. I appreciate it. And I'll
Thank you,
just say-
George. And
Thank you,
yeah, I
Lisa.
put those links in the chat one more time for the IEA YouTube page, where the recording will be later this week, and also the link for the IEA conference. George is going to be at the IEA conference next month in Detroit. So if you don't have the pleasure of seeing him every week in your executive association, come hang out with us in Detroit and try to strike up a conflict with him and see how it goes for you.
Oh my gosh, don't do that, please. Thank you, Lisa. That was good. I liked it. See how I do.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
See you there.
Thank you.
very
Thank
much.
you, George.
you.
Great job.
Thanks, Yale execs. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for your support.
A lot of it.
Appreciate it. Thanks, George Jr. Thanks, Richard. Mahalo.
Elisa,
Yes.
I don't